It's Wednesday, so you guys already know what that means. It is time for my pick'ems. This is the last week of the qualifiers for the Stage 2 Major, and it is a very important week for a lot of teams. So we're going to do our best to rebound from the absolute blunder that we had last week. As we get into the first match of the weekend, guys, don't forget, we are slowly creeping up on Octane, and we will pass him in total subscribers by the end of the year. So if you guys do like the content, I'd appreciate it if you could hit the sub button. But for the first matchup, we have Toronto Ultra versus the Paris Legion. This is a big week for Toronto, okay? Paris Legion, not so much. They're already 0-4. This is their only match of the week, and I just don't see them coming out with a win, even though Toronto hasn't looked great by any means as of late. So I'm gonna say Toronto Ultra 3-1. LAG versus the LA Thieves, the Battle of Los Angeles. Now, these two teams are basically performing so far in this qualifier the exact opposite. LAG sitting at a solid 2-1 record going to this weekend, and LAT, they haven't got a win yet. They are 0-3 this qualifier. But here's the thing. The Gorillas have a very tough schedule this week, okay? They go up against LAT and OpTic. Before this, they had pretty easy matchups. They've played Florida, Paris, and Seattle, losing to Florida 3-0, beating Paris 3-0, and Seattle 3-1. And on the other hand, LAT, they've had a lot tougher competition. They played London Royal Ravens. Now, it was with a sub because Gizmo was back home. But the sub was Paul X, who he is a very, very good player. He has potential to be a superstar in this league, I believe. And then they lost a Game 5, Round 11 to OpTic. Yes, I know OpTic was trying to deepen their map pool. And they also got reverse swept by the Minnesota ROKKR. Okay. So even though LAT is trending downwards, and you could say LAG is, you know, they're on an uptick in their performance. I don't even know what uptick means, but I still favor LAT here. And I know that you're going to say I'm biased, but just looking at it realistically, woulda, coulda, shoulda, you know, what ifs, there's a chance that LAT could have been 2-1 as well as LAG in this matchup. Now, they aren't. Their backs are against the wall because no matter what, they have to win both of these matches this week if they want a chance in the winner's bracket. I have this going 3-1 in favor of LAT, and unfortunately for Gorillas, their next match is going to be up against OpTic. But the last match on Friday, guys, it's going to be the Florida Mutineers versus the Atlanta Faze. Now, Florida is surprising a lot of people so far in the qualifiers because they're also sitting at 2-1. And even though Atlanta Faze had some very close series, they lost 2-3 to Seattle. They beat London, and then they went Game 5 with Toronto Ultra as well, but they won that. You just have to favor Atlanta here, okay? This Florida team is so weird to me. They're so inconsistent. I can't trust them going up against a team like Atlanta Faze. I think this is going to be a 3-0 in the favor of Atlanta, and that moves us on to the second day of the weekend, where we start with the Los Angeles Thieves versus the Seattle Surge. Now, this is Seattle's only match of the weekend, and it's a must win because if they lose, they are automatically in the loser's bracket no matter what. And honestly, they've had a very tough qualifier so far because they've played Boston, Atlanta Faze, OpTic Texas, and the Los Angeles Gorillas. And their only win, surprisingly, coming against the Atlanta Faze in a 3-2 fashion. But they've had some very tough matchups, and I do think they have looked better as of late. Okay, I think they are slowly getting out of that rut that they're in, and this is a must-win for both teams. And so far in these qualifiers, even though the strength of competition has been different, they've both been performing relatively the same. Okay, LAT's hardpoint hasn't looked as great. Their S&D, still a ton of issues, but their record's not horrible. They are 2-3, and they've played some very good S&D teams, and it's the same for the Seattle Surge. They are also 2-3. The only advantage Seattle has so far in the qualifiers is their control record. I'm confident that LAT is going to bounce back, and this might be the first time in a while that you guys are going to say I'm being biased, but I truly think both of these teams in LAG and Seattle, LAT can easily beat. I do think that this is going to go down to a Game 5, but I think LAT is going to clutch up this time. Next, we have Florida Mutineers versus the Boston Breach. Boston Breach currently tied for first. Now, that's a shocker to me. I don't know if it is to you guys, but they look good. They look very good. And the biggest surprise for me with Boston is they have yet to lose a hard point in the Stage 2 qualifiers. They've also played tougher competition, in my opinion. And there's two ways that we can go about this, right? Because there has to be an upset somewhere. There always is. This could be a game where Florida, they just steal it from Boston. Florida should have beat Boston at the stage 1 major, but they choked. They crumbled horrendously. So they definitely have the potential to do it. And while I do think Florida has improved, I think the way that Boston has looked as of late, they have to be considered top 4, top 5 team in the game. And I think they're going to stay on this momentum. I have them winning 3-1 over Florida. I think they're just too strong at hardpoint and S&D, especially as of late. Their control is the only thing that I'm worried about. But against a team like Florida Mutineers, I can see them coming away with the win. LAG versus OpTic. This is tough. Like I said earlier, guys, LAG is a very hard 2 matches. And I don't think that they're going to get a win here. It's pretty simple. And it sucks because they're going to go into this weekend, in my opinion, 2-1. They're going to come out 2-3. But there's really nothing you can do. I have this being a 3-0 in favor of OpTic Texas. But even if it isn't, I have OpTic coming out on top. Minnesota ROKKR going up against the New York Subliners. Now, Minnesota is another team that only has 1 match this weekend, okay? They are currently sitting at 2-2. So a win would guarantee them winners. If they lose, it goes down to the tiebreakers, which you don't want to happen, okay? You don't want to have to go through the tiebreakers because that's where it gets very sticky, okay? NYSL with Paul X, they've only played pairs, but they beat them pretty convincingly, I would say. And this Minnesota team, they're closing series out, but they're closing them out 3-2. Minnesota is by far one of the worst hardpoint teams in the game right now. Now, their S&D and control is pretty average. I mean, their S&D is good. Their control is very average. But I'm worried because NYSL actually looked very good in hardpoint going up against, now it was Paris. But like I said, Minnesota is about the same when it comes to hardpoint as the Paris Legion. I have NYSL coming out and I have them winning 3-1, man. I think Hydra goes off. I think Paul X goes off. I even think Krim plays well. Okay, and when's the last time we've seen that? I'm just kidding. He's the what does he call himself? The fat man. But I do think this is going to be an upset. I think NYSL is going to try and spoil Minnesota ROKKR's winners bracket for the second major. And NYSL still have a chance on making winners bracket. But moving on to the final day, we have the Boston Breach versus the London Royal Ravens. Now, going into this match, I would say London has had a completely easier schedule. Besides their 1 loss to Atlanta Faze, they really haven't played the toughest competition. I've owned up to my comments about Boston being the most overrated team in the league, and I think they are finding their footing. But I do think London is going to show everyone why they are currently one of the best teams in the game right now. OpTic Texas versus Atlanta Faze. This is the series everyone's been waiting for, okay? Both of these teams are in. Both of these teams are in the winners bracket unless Atlanta Faze completely crumbles versus the Mutineers, and then they would have to lose here, which, newsflash, I think it's going to happen. Now, I don't think they're going to lose versus Florida, but right now, OpTic is just the better team. They are. I think this is the best OpTic we've seen in years, speaking from a fundamental standpoint. You know, they're not relying on their kills alone to win games. That is the bonus. They seem like they're very fundamentally sound, as well as this Faze team. Okay, I'm not going to discredit them, but I think OpTic just might have their number. Now, we're just going to have to wait and see, because so far in the 2 series that I've seen OpTic and Atlanta Faze play, at least at the major, okay, when it's on land, I know this is online, there's a reverse sweep for OpTic, and then it was a 5-2, and it was pretty close series, you know, if you look at the actual maps themselves, but OpTic still came out on top. So this might be my way too early take. I think there could be a chance where OpTic is just in Atlanta Faze's heads. Atlanta Faze could legitimately have a mental block versus this OpTic gaming team, or OpTic Texas, excuse me. But I do have OpTic winning. I'm going to go ahead and say 3-2. I think it's going to be close, but OpTic's going to come out on top. Last but not least, the Toronto Ultra versus the New York Subliners. Once again, I said this is a very huge weekend for a lot of teams, because Toronto, they need to go 2-0 this week. Same with NYSL. And this is where it can get scary for Toronto, okay? Because like I said, even though it's only been one series with Paul X, NYSL won both hardpoints. Toronto Ultras still can't figure the hardpoints out to save their lives, okay? They are undefeated in control and their S&D looks good, but it's going to be hard if you can't win a single hardpoint in a series. That's 2 maps. You might as well start down 0-2. Now, Toronto have had a very hard schedule. They played Minnesota, Boston, and Atlanta Faze, and they lost to Atlanta Faze and Boston 3-2 both times, okay? And both series, they didn't win a hardpoint. So if they struggle to win a hardpoint versus NYSL, this series has upset potential written all over it. The only issue is I think Toronto is going to figure it out if you're an NYSL fan. And I think that they're going to at least get one hardpoint off of NYSL because we don't know how much better NYSL is looking with Paul X realistically. Because it's a small sample size so far and they haven't played a relatively good team with Paul X. This is going to be the first true test, I would say. But I do have Toronto coming out on top. I think they're going to win 3-1. They're going to steal a hard point. Their control looks great. Their S&D has, always been good. And those are my pick'ems. We're looking to rebound from last weekend. I appreciate all the love. As always, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know, seriously, let me know what videos you want me to make in the next couple days. I'm going to do my best to make them. Maybe we'll do another Q&A video. Doesn't matter. But as always, I appreciate the love. I'll see y'all when I see y'all.